Hello everyone, welcome back to another Upgrade Your OETs practice session with me, Sona. Today we're going to be looking at an OET reading part C, and in particular some help with identifying opinions, because Tamanna, one of my YouTube viewers, actually got in touch and said, please can we do some more of this? So I thought, yes, great idea, let's do some more practice on OET reading part C. And because it's an opinion question that we're looking at, I went straight to find an opinion piece from the BMJ. If you don't know the BMJ, that's the British Medical Journal, and it's a great online tool that you can use yourself to help you practice for the OET. Some of it you have to be a member and you have to pay for, but there's a lot that you can access for free, which is what I did, and the link is up there, and I'll also put it in the information box so you can take a look at it yourself. As I say, we're going to be focusing on reading part C. We're going to go through it together this time, so you can see how someone like me, who's an L1 speaker of English, reads it and identifies opinion. And we'll also look at some strategies that you can use yourself when you're preparing and taking the test. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sona and I'm a premium preparation provider with Bose Learning. Okay, let's get started then. And this is where I got the article from. As I say, it's the BMJ, and you can see here it's an opinion piece. So this isn't a review, it isn't a publication about any kind of new treatment or medication. This is the opinion of someone writing. So it's bound to be full of implication, connotation, and opinion kind of ideas. Let's focus in just on the heading, which you can see here, but which I've pulled up here as well for you. And the author has said, I'm struggling to understand why patients decide not to get the COVID vaccine. So let's have a look at this, and what do you pick out from here? What do you expect to read just from looking at this heading? Well, if it was me, I would expect to probably have some examples of cases of patients who have decided not to get the vaccine. Some of them may be positive, some may be negative. But because she's struggling, I'm expecting more negative cases, or cases where things have gone wrong, perhaps we can say. And I'm also expecting her reasoning, her reasons why she's struggling to understand. Why is she finding this so hard? What's her thinking behind it? We may also see something like a call to get more people vaccinated. So she's saying, please come on, get vaccinated, everyone. Those are the kinds of things I'm expecting, and that's all just from reading the title here. Now, why is it that I'm getting all this information from the title? Because she has lots of emotive words here. Words like struggling. So when you're struggling, you find it really difficult to do something. So maybe you struggle to breathe if you have pneumonia. So struggling to understand, you can't understand. You're trying to, but you can't understand. So this is a very emotive word. And the idea that she's trying to understand shows that she's torn. She wants to understand, but she's finding it really difficult. This is the first paragraph from it. Now, what you'll notice here is that I've blocked out two adjectives which describe her emotions, and I'd like us to think about what they could be, try and guess, and then we'll come back to it at the end. So we've got here, as rates of Omicron rise, an anaesthetist deployed to intensive care during COVID surges describes her and that people choose not to have the COVID vaccine. So what do you think could go here and here? This adjective begins with A, and this one begins with D. Have a think, but I'll give you the answer at the end of the video. You'll also notice that I've picked out some words in red. And again, this helps me read into what she's written, or it helps me read into the summary of what I can expect to read. So she's an anaesthetist, okay. She has been deployed to intensive care. What does that tell me? Well, deployed means sent, so sent away from her normal role. And of course, normally she works as an anaesthetist, but she's been sent away from that role to work in an intensive care ward. So that already tells me something. There is a reason why she's been sent away. What is it? That's the COVID surges. So we've already got a bit of a conflict going on. She's got her normal job, but she can't do it. She's been sent somewhere else because they need her more instead. So how do you think that makes her feel? And how do you think she reacts to people who choose not to have the vaccine? So in the UK, it's a choice. You can have it if you want it. You don't have to have it. There's no law that says you do. I know in a lot of countries that's not the case, but certainly in the UK, you can always choose to have something or not. It's a little bit different if you work for healthcare. You actually do have to have it, but not for everyone else. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go through this article paragraph by paragraph. And first of all, I'd like you just to read through each paragraph and pick out any kind of emotional language, like I've done here. So pick out any adjectives, opinions, or shades of meaning. I'll read it with you. I'm a consultant anaesthetist. I work in a busy district general hospital in an area badly affected by COVID, serving a population whose vaccination rate is significantly lower than the national average. It's a population that is also socially and economically deprived, with all the associated health effects. In the first 2 waves of the pandemic, I worked in intensive care, and I will do so again within weeks. Okay, so what kind of emotional language can you see here? Well, we've got the fact that she works in a busy hospital. I think most hospitals are generally busy anyway, but she's chosen to put that word in. And it's in an area badly affected by COVID. She serves a population. That's quite a normal collocation for a healthcare professional. You don't do a job. Of course, you do a job, you're a professional, but you serve people. You are acting on their behalf. And the rate of vaccinations here is significantly lower, much lower. So that's a fact, but it's also an interesting one. It's a population that is socially and economically deprived, so they don't have as many economical benefits as other places in the country, and this has its associated health effects. So she's painting a picture of the place where she works. Now, what about these shades of meaning here? She says she was deployed to work in intensive care, and I will do so again within weeks. She seems very confident of this. I will do so again within weeks. Why do you think that is? What does the author imply when she says, I will do so again within weeks? Take a look at the options for me and pick out the best one. Well, it's option B. Well, it's option B. She doesn't usually work there. She's normally an anaesthetist. She's not keen to work there. It's not something she's chosen to do. She has to do it. And within weeks has this idea of it's going to happen soon, not that it will be in some future time. In fact, I would say from her tone of voice, she's resigned to the fact. She is ready. She has accepted that something unpleasant must happen and that she cannot change it. I will do so again within weeks. She has to do it. That's just the way things are going to be. And this probably makes her feel quite worried, quite upset, quite sad. You can already see it from the way she's writing. Here's the next paragraph for you. Again, we'll read it together, and I'd like you to pick out any adjectives, opinions, or shades of meaning as you're reading. In my career, I have treated hundreds of patients who are in hospital because of choices they have made. Smokers, skiers injured on the slopes, along with patients who have inserted various objects into orifices not intended for the purpose. I have never felt judgmental. I understand it is their right to choose, and while I may not agree with their choices, my job is to treat them with compassion but not judgment. I have never found that difficult. So, these emotive words here, well, in her career, so she's obviously had a nice long career, and it's all about choices people have made. We've got people who have chosen to smoke, people who have chosen to go skiing, which is, could be quite risky, and we have people who have inserted things into orifices which they shouldn't have done. She says quite honestly, she's never felt judgmental. She's never criticised them. It's their right to choose, and she understands this. She might not agree with them, but that's not her job. It's irrelevant to the way she treats them. She's never found it difficult. Now, in my career, all of this has happened, but I have never found that difficult. What does that imply? So normally it's been no problem for her to treat these people who have caused self-inflicted damage. But this phrase here, I have never found that difficult, implies that now she does. Things have changed. Before she never found it hard, but now she's finding it really hard to understand these choices. So this phrase here implies that her opinion has changed. Present perfect here. Okay, let's look at the question. Why does the author give examples of patients who have smoked, been skiing, or self-inflicted damage? Have a look at the options, pick the best one for me. And it is, of course, option C. It's not that she's shocked. It's not her job to be shocked. She just carries on with it. It's not funny. It is a little bit funny when we look at it in black and white, but actually it's not funny for those people. She's not trying to be humorous, and she's not trying to say that everyone needs to be treated differently, but more the idea that they should all be treated equally. So what I'm doing, as you can see as I'm going along, just picking out anything I find interesting, which is emotional, emotive, anything with a shade of meaning. And this is something you can do as well. As you're reading, just pick out anything which you think is important to colour the text, if it's an opinion question. Have a read of this next one, and then pick out anything you think is important for meaning, connotation, implication. Until now, I'm struggling to understand why patients decide not to get the COVID vaccine. I see patient after patient on the labour ward, in emergency theatre and in intensive care who have chosen not to have the vaccine. The reasons vary, from worry about long-term effects through fertility to inaccurate ideas about microchips and government surveillance. Almost exclusively, those needing intensive care or dying with COVID are young, healthy and unvaccinated. Only a tiny proportion are vaccinated, vulnerable patients with other underlying health conditions or are partially vaccinated. This despite scientific research and real-world evidence showing that vaccination works. Vaccination offers us the sole opportunity to avoid further lockdowns and lead relatively normal lives. I find these self-destructive decisions incomprehensible. So we have this idea of her struggling again. She's lists these various reasons. Some are worried about long-term effects, fertility, and there are inaccurate ideas about government surveillance. We've got this contrast between who actually is in intensive care with COVID. It's not the people you would expect. It's the young, the healthy, and that's because they're unvaccinated. And she says this despite scientific research and real world evidence. So they are in hospital despite this research being evident to them. So, why does she use this phrase, this despite? What does it imply? Have a look here and pick out the best one. And it is A. She's frustrated. You can hear her frustration. So these are young, healthy people. They shouldn't be in intensive care. They are there because they have chosen not to get the vaccine, according to her. They are not following the scientific evidence which is out there for them. She's not trying to draw a line between this misinformation that's available on the internet. She's not really saying it's nothing to do with her job or that patients need to be better informed. They might well be, but that's not what she's saying here. Here we get the frustration, her annoyance, her anger, and her hurt, maybe, that these people are choosing these things. Okay, the next one for you. There is also the question of free riding. The unvaccinated enjoy the benefits, social freedoms, and much reduced risk of COVID infection because the majority of adults and now adolescents chose to take the vaccine. A small number who get sick need our care. Some need to come to an intensive care or have their babies delivered early as they are too sick to remain pregnant. They require huge resources. The average stay in intensive care is 2 weeks. Many stay for months and some do not survive. The impacts on healthcare professionals include ongoing risks of being infected. Most frontline healthcare professionals had COVID before the vaccines were available due to exposure at work. At best, we got sick. At worst, some of us died and sadly continue to die. Healthcare workers carry the emotional impact of caring for and sometimes losing young, previously healthy individuals who are critically unwell from COVID, when this could have been avoided if they had had the vaccine. The physical and mental challenge of caring for these patients is huge. The numbers are still large enough to affect the care we want to give to non COVID patients. We cannot always proceed with elective surgery or get an intensive care bed for an emergency patient who needs it for non COVID reasons. So we have this idea of free riding. These people who aren't vaccinated are enjoying the benefits. They're at much reduced risk to COVID because everyone else is vaccinated. But if they do get sick, then they need care, and this care is expensive. Not only is it expensive, but it has an emotional impact as well on healthcare professionals, some of whom get sick. They were sick before the vaccine was developed. Some died, and also they have to care for these patients. They have to watch these young lives being lost every day. And this is a physical and mental challenge, but also a practical one because people who aren't in hospital for COVID, but for other reasons, elective surgery or another emergency, can't get into hospital because the beds are taken up for COVID patients. So, what does the phrase free riding imply? Have a look here and see if you can pick out the best one. Okay, and it's actually D, that some people enjoy the benefits of living in a free society, but they're not paying for it in time or effort. They're choosing not to get vaccinated. This has an impact, but they're not feeling it. So the idea of free riding is when you enjoy something for free without any work at all. She's not saying that if you don't get vaccinated and you get ill, you should pay. That's actually being rolled out in some countries, I believe. That's not what's being said here because in the NHS, treatment is always free at the point of contact. They're not saying that people should pay for the vaccine or they should be encouraged using a free ride, a taxi ride. No, it's this idea that some people are enjoying life at the price of others. Again, that just shows this author's frustration. And let's see what she says next. We are tired. We are working at greater capacity than ever before and have been for nearly 2 years. I worry that this sustained pressure will break us. We will make mistakes, and this impacts everyone. It's already happening. At present rate, we will never be able to clear the backlog. There is a sustained pressure on our hospital wards and intensive care units. The waits will get longer. The service will at times fall short of the high standards we take for granted. For the first time in my professional life, I am angry with my patients who choose not to get vaccinated, and while I do not let it affect my patient care, I think it's affecting me. Okay, so she's tired. You can hear the tiredness in the way she's writing. There's so much pressure, she thinks she might break or her colleagues might break. They're making mistakes and there's a backlog. Patients, non-COVID patients aren't getting treated and this list is growing longer. Now, this is the really emotional part. For the first time in her life, she's angry with these patients. She's not letting it affect the way she treats them. She's not being judgmental. She's not treating them worse than other patients. But she's worried that it's affecting her own mental health. It's affecting me. So, why is she worried? Can you pick out the best option? And I think, as we said, it's option D. Okay, final one coming up now. I do not believe in forcing people to get the vaccine, and I feel uncomfortable that it is happening in the NHS. But equally, I am just so disappointed that so many people continue to choose not to take the vaccine. I can't understand it. Unlike the patients needing our care due to the ordinary choices they have made, choosing not to get vaccinated is different. It doesn't just affect the individual, it affects us all. Okay, so she doesn't believe in forcing people to be vaccinated. She's uncomfortable with this idea, but equally, at the same time, she is just so disappointed that people are choosing not to be vaccinated. She can't understand it because it's not just themselves they're affecting, but everyone, the people who are on the front line of this, which is the NHS workers in the UK. So, why is she disappointed? Can you pick out the best choice here? Well, although she is worried, she's uncomfortable about the government taking away people's choices. That's not what she's really focusing on. She doesn't want everyone to be forced to be vaccinated, and she's worried about herself and her colleagues, but there's no implication that more isn't being done. It's B. She thinks people's decisions not to get vaccinated have a greater impact than they realise, probably. It has an impact on healthcare workers and on society. So, going back to what we looked at initially, then, what do you think the two missing adjectives are here? She describes her and that people choose not to have the COVID vaccine, her anger and disappointment. And I hope you were able to see how that was picked out throughout the piece. So when you are revising, when you're practicing, go away, look up these kind of opinion pieces and do what I did. Pick out anything emotive, anything that uses adjectives or phrases which carry an emotion, and see why the author has chosen to write that. Focus in on that for a bit, and that should help you build your skills for your OET. Thanks very much for watching. Please watch one of our other videos if you've got time, and if you'd like to have a look at one of our on-demand courses, which are available on Udemy, I'll put them in the information box below, so you'll be able to get a discount. Thanks very much, and see you again next time. Take care. Bye bye.